Hello vinyl community and fellow Beatlemaniacs, welcome back to another video. The first 3 videos are now up on the channel, and I've been pleased that so many of you have left comments and said lots and lots of lovely things that have just inspired me to make more. So for that, thank you very, very much indeed. Today I would like to do a look at an album from the other side of the Atlantic to me. The comments for my second video, which about the countdown of the Beatles US albums, were particularly positive. So my last video I looked at the British Revolver, so today I'm going to look at an American album. And yeah, I've been listening to this one quite a bit since I made that US albums video. And as much as I stick by my original statement regarding the British version of this album, I really do like the American one. I can't deny it. I don't like it more, but I do like it. And I said in that video that the Meet the Beatles second album, and this one are my 3 favourites. I talk, of course, about the American Rubber Soul, which is an absolutely brilliant place. It really does hang together well, and I can totally see where a lot of you guys are coming from. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the American Rubber Soul, and in order to talk about the American Rubber Soul I have to talk about the British Rubber Soul, which is certainly up to the end of 1965 by far the Beatles' most mature and sophisticated work. And they were really starting to flex their creative muscles at this point, moving away from kind of what made them popular in the first place, this beat group feel, very electric, strong backbeat, etc., and moving on to much more deep and meaningful work, if you like. And a large part of that was, of course, they were growing up, they were becoming more mature as men. They'd had a lot of life experience by then. Marijuana, of course, was playing a very large part in their day-to-day lives, which was obviously influencing the way they were writing, the way they were looking at the world. And as the end of 1965 came around, they had just experienced an absolute whirlwind that nobody had ever experienced before. And the way that Beatlemania took hold, there was not a single day from early 1963 onwards that they could possibly call normal. And as a result, this kind of carousel, if you like, that they found themselves on, going from single to album to tour to television to meeting dignitaries and making public appearances and radio, and in John's case books, and it was just non-stop and everything was happening around them. 2 movies as well, of course, both very successful. But you can see, particularly when you're watching Help, you can see that they're not quite the same. There's a sort of world weariness that's come over them, and the freshness you see in A Hard Day's Night, it just isn't there in Help. And of course, mid-65, the Beatles are given the MBE, member of the British Empire, which if you watch the video clips of the press interviewing them about it, they're very, very sarcastic and sort of putting it down. And of course, lots of people at the time who'd received the MBE were not very happy that a pop group had achieved such a thing. Yeah, and those interviews are quite entertaining, because you can totally see where they are. They're probably stoned out of their minds, and they think the whole thing's very, very bizarre. To these 4 guys from Liverpool, and the world's just completely swallowed them up. So as a result, obviously this craziness is going to affect them, and you can see actually in the Beatles for Sale at the end of the previous year, much more acoustic stuff on there, slightly more introverted material. John's I'm a Loser, you've got things like Babies in Black, I Don't Want to Spoil the Party, and then you go into Help the following year, and You've Got to Hide Your Love Away is probably the most obvious, blatant Dylan influence up to that point. Acoustic guitar, that sort of Dylan rhythm, very, very clear. And again, it's You've Got to Hide Your Love Away. The lyrical content of that goes a little bit deeper than things that they've done before. And so then we head into late 1965. They've done their big American tour. They've played Shea Stadium. And they go back into the studio, I think in October, early October. I'll have to pick up my Lewison book and see if that's right. I think it is. And they start recording the material that became Rubber Soul. And bear in mind, this album came out on the 3rd of December 1965. Well, the British version, certainly. They didn't have much time at all. But the songs that they had were absolutely incredible. So, in talking about the American album, I'm going to go through track by track. I'm going to talk about particular highlights for me and highlights for them. And of course, the American album is missing certain songs that appeared on Rubber Soul in Britain. They were siphoned off for Yesterday and Today, which came out in early '66, and 2 songs from the British Help album, I've Just Seen a Face and It's Only Love, appear on this album. And yeah, they work. Strangely, they do. They work. And opens with I've Just Seen a Face. You've got that quite extended acoustic guitar introduction. Lovely guitar work, and it is a really great album opener. And I think when it is tucked away in the middle of side 2 of Help, it does kind of miss something. So you've got this quite interesting introduction. I've Just Seen a Face, very acoustic guitar led, and that leads beautifully into Norwegian Wood, which was also track 2 on the British album as well. What can I say about Norwegian Wood? I mean, what an absolutely incredible song this is. The Beatles tackled it very differently initially. There's an outtake that appears on Anthology 2, which is slower, lower key, it's a bit more sort of ponderous. And the sitar, which of course is a feature of the final recording, is much more pronounced on that outtake. And like all the songs on Anthology, I mean, they're entertaining to listen to, but the Beatles' quality control was second to none, and the stuff they put out, that's the reason they put it out. You know why they discarded these versions for a reason. So Norwegian Wood, a lovely acoustic guitar introduction, all John, I believe, around that D chord and just moving his little finger, and it's a great little riff, which George obviously echoes on the sitar. And the lyrical content, famously, John writing about an affair he was having at the time. Sort of much more oblique lyrics, little clues here and there. And of course, famously, he and Paul got together and decided that this girl's house was going to burn down at the end. Isn't it good, Norwegian Wood? So they were calling these sort of comedy songs little ironic little vignettes, if you like. The harmonies in the middle 8 of Norwegian Wood are some of my favourite Beatle moments. Those 2 voices of John and Paul, in countless Beatles songs, the way they knit together, but in this one, that high harmony that Paul does, it's absolutely beautiful. And flows seamlessly into You Won't See Me, which is also on the British version. And you've got that sort of doo-wop backing, ooh la 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 and all that. Very catchy pop song, works really, really well. And actually, now I come to think about it, one of the issues I've got with the British Rubber Soul is that the very next song on the British Rubber Soul is Nowhere Man, which also has an ooh la 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 backing. So it's a little bit samey actually. And on this one, Nowhere Man Doesn't Appear. So You Won't See Me stands out a little bit more as a result. Then we jump straight to Think For Yourself by George. Really, really catchy. You get that fuzz bass from Paul. Great harmonies. And yeah, as a song, you can really hear George growing in confidence as a composer. The Word. What excited me the most when I heard the version of The Word on the American Rubber Soul was that it's a slightly different version. It's one of the things as when you become a Beatles fan and you discover all the different versions of songs in various albums, mono, stereo, American, UK, these little idiosyncratic little differences. And I think John is double tracked on the verses on this one. And when I first heard it, I'm like, that's interesting. And The Word is possibly the first time but they're singing about love, and they're not singing about romantic love. They're singing about the kind of love that they would go on to sing about in All You Need Is Love, more of a universal togetherness. So yeah, The Word's great, lovely, great piano in that. And then the side finishes with Michelle, as it does on the British version. Not my favourite Beatles song. It's a little bit, possibly a little bit twee. I enjoy it. I really like the guitar, that bass line high up the neck. Yeah, it's not my favourite. I think John's little middle bit, the I love you, I love you, I love you bit, which is sort of, I think he said was influenced by Nina Simone, that kind of elevates it a little bit. I think you get that sort of change of pace in the middle. On to side two, as I said earlier on, we begin with It's Only Love from the British Help. Again, acoustic guitar led, you got that 12-string sound. When I listen to this, you hear the 12-string sound of the Byrds, you hear the acoustic dominated songs of the time. Donovan was coming to prominence. Obviously Dylan's early albums had become successful in England. I think Simon and Garfunkel were just starting to come through. So this is fitting right in, and the folk rock tone of those particular artists is echoed in the Beatles music. It's Only Love. John famously hated the lyric of It's Only Love, but the tune is absolutely killer. Which takes us into another John song, which is one of my favourite Beatles songs of all time, which is Girl, which not only has a beautiful tune, but has incredible lyrics. John said he was writing about this sort of ideal of a girl. Was she told when she was young that pain would lead to pleasure? Did they understand it when they said that a man must break his back to earn his day of leisure? Will she still believe it when she's dead? And oh, it's a different level. We're into new territory here. And the cheeky little backing vocals that I know they were very proud that they managed to sneak through. Tit, 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 which is very schoolboy humour. Don't approve of that at all. Amazing song, absolutely stunning. I'm Looking Through You, next song. Really interesting version of that song on Anthology 2 as well, and sort of early version without the why, tell me why middle bit. Slower, sort of different percussion. Great performance. But again, not quite like this. And I'm Looking Through You features another bizarre thing. When I first put this record on, there's 2 false starts on it. They actually, somebody more knowledgeable than I will be able to explain how that got through quality control in America. But yeah, now you listen to that, I was like, whoa, that's different. So yeah, the acoustic introduction to I'm Looking Through You finally gets going, and the song kicks off. About Jane Asher. Paul and Jane had a famously turbulent relationship. Obviously Jane was a very successful actress and had her own career, and I believe Paul expected maybe something different from the person he was going to be with, and they would often clash. and a lot of songs from the time are songs about that relationship. And if I was to put my head on the block and say, this is my favourite Beatles song of all time, this is the song that I want played at my funeral, it would probably be the next song on the list, which is In My Life. In My Life is one of those songs I've heard hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times before. I loved it from the second I first heard it, and every time I hear it, I hear something different. It moves me. It makes me warm. It makes me happy. It's just an absolutely incredible piece of work, and the way that this band can produce these kind of things. Apparently it was a John poem, I think, originally about his life in Liverpool, which he set to music with Paul. I believe they disagreed in later years about who wrote this. John said Paul wrote the middle eight. The song doesn't really have a middle eight, and the melody is very wide, which is very McCartney-esque, so I'm inclined to believe Paul on that one. But definitely John's words, references to Stu Sutcliffe and things like that. And that instrumental break in My Life, George Martin's sped up keyboard solo, like a Bach invention, it just makes me happy. I'd be interested to know your thoughts on In My Life, because that is my favourite Beatles song of all time. There we go, I've said it. I'm pinned down. I'm on camera saying that, so that will not change. Then we have a throwaway from the Help sessions. They didn't want this song. It was Wait, and I think they came back to it and dubbed extra things on it. Catchy little song. Works really well in this collection. Worked really well on side 2 of the British version as well. And we finish with Run For Your Life, which John also hated because it doesn't paint him in a particularly good light. Very brutally honest, as a lot of Lennon songs are. Takes the line from Baby Let's Play House, I'd rather see you dead, little girl, than to be with another man. But cracking tune, very catchy, sing along. You can find yourself singing these quite dark lyrics. Great way to end the album. I've always enjoyed it. So album art, pretty much the same, slightly different tint on the logo on Rubber Soul. Pictures on the back, I believe they are the same ones. They might be in a slightly different order. Obviously this is different. And regarding the record itself, this one is, I don't have the original in the sleeve, but it is a Capitol rainbow cover, and it plays beautifully. And like I said at the start, I've been coming back to this most days since I made that second video on the US albums. So yes, American viewers, you have a point. This is an absolutely incredible version of an already great album. I love the British version, starting off with Drive My Car. I do like To Hear Nowhere Man. If I Needed Someone is obviously another George song, and that's one of my favourite songs as well. But as a collection, yeah, if you want to listen to a chilled out, acoustic guitar led, more deep Beatles album, then you cannot go far wrong with this as a playlist. And yeah, stereo version, of course. Is the false start on the mono version? I don't think it is, but I might be wrong. Let me know in the comments if you know. So I will end the video there. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for listening to my musings on this one. Like I say, one of my favourite albums of all time, and this is a very, very nice alternative to an already great record. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again soon.